The 2.7-mile Interlagos circuit, within sight of the industrial city of Sao Paulo, is one of the finest in the world. Round 3 of the World Championship is of crucial importance to the man who leads it, Nigel Mansell, the dominant winner in both South Africa and Mexico in his Williams Renault. But Sao Paulo is Ayrton Senna's hometown. The hero of Brazil has only won his own Grand Prix once in 8 years, and this year he's up against it. With a 16-point gap between him and Mansell, McLaren have decided to gamble on their unraced and very high-tech new car, and it's been very hard going. The new Honda V12 engine gives less power, and on Friday, with reduced downforce to compensate, Senna half-spun in his efforts to match the Williams Renaults. Despite his brilliance, he was outclassed, and on Friday evening, the world champion was only 9th fastest. Second on the grid at the end of the day, just as in Mexico, it was Riccardo Patrese in his Williams. Very quick, but a staggering 1.8 seconds slower than his teammate. Because Nigel Mansell, on a gigantic high of confidence in himself and his car, he lapped in...
That was a good lap. Even I say it's a good lap.
Would the Williams men go faster still on Saturday? Patrese did, to consolidate his second position on the grid, but Mansell didn't. In fact, Nigel nearly drove himself out of the race in a determined effort to humble Senna by passing the Brazilian as Ayrton starting grid. No one to blame, just a misunderstanding, said a bruised Mansell afterwards, but he was very lucky not to have hurt himself.
I only saw that something happened to him when I was out of the corner already, and it happened under braking at that corner when we were both going slow. So I don't know what happened with him. We never touched, you know, but of course something went wrong for him and he probably lost the car and as a consequence hit the wall.
Race day and Nigel Mansell is fit. Pole position with Patrese next ahead of the two McLarens. Then, sandwiching Alace's Ferrari, the two Benettons of Schumacher and Brundle. 1 second covers 11 cars from 5th to 15th. Brazilian Christian Fittipaldi starts his first Brazilian Grand Prix 20th. And Johnny Herbert has just scraped in at 26th. It's hot, it's sunny at Brazil, and Gerhard Berger, trouble on the grid. He's going to have to start from the pit lane. It's go. Now, who's going to get away first from the Williams? It's a magnificent start by Riccardo Patrese, who leads Nigel Mansell away. Patrese's been practicing his starts, and it seems to have been working. Schumacher is in 3rd place. Look at this colossal gaggle as they go through the S's. Riccardo Patrese, Williams Renault. Nigel Mansell in 2nd place. Then it's Ayrton Senna tight up behind him. It's Jean Alesi. Now it's Schumacher, then it's Alesi, then it's Martin Brundle, then it's Pierluigi Martini.
And Mansell had a big go down the inside of Patrese there and really trying to make it on the first lap. He knows that overtaking is very, very difficult on this circuit, and in fact he didn't make it. Patrese brazened it out with him, and Mansell quite rightly went for discretion rather than valour with this sort of a car advantage. He's got the best part of 200 miles to get by, including a pit stop, but it won't be easy. Looking at the start again now, Patrese electrifying off the line from the length disadvantage. Schumacher trying to find a way through, and Senna coming down the outside of Schumacher. And Senna now, of course, has got what's about to be the inside for the right-hand half of this corner. Schumacher driving with considerable experience there, because it would have been easier to have had a bump, but Schumacher's done a lot of sports car racing. And back to the race now.
Into lap 2 with Patrese leading, Mansell 2nd, Senna holding that 3rd position. and the Williams don't seem to be pulling away at the moment. It's been a terrible race for McLaren already, with Gerhard Berger starting from the pit lane, trying to get up through the field. He's not doing it very much at the moment, and Senna holding that third position. And the McLarens blew 3 engines yesterday, 2 of the new Honda V12s, one of last year's engines, which incidentally is more powerful than this year's new one. That's something for Honda to attend to. But Riccardo Patrese, a man who won 2 Grand Prix last year and was faster than Mansell at the beginning of last season for race after race, has now got his dander up. He's in the lead for the first time, and there is Gerhard Berger, number 2, struggling along by himself, going very slowly, and Patrese really hanging it all out. Look at his head as he goes round the corner.
Down at the back of the field, a tremendous start to the race by Johnny Herbert, who was last on the grid in 26th place, and he was 18th at the end of the first lap, so he must have done a really charging first lap.
Johnny Herbert, who went so well in the Lotus earlier on in South Africa, and now we were with Nigel Mansell there, over the line, into another lap, onto the S's. This is where Senna spun in practice, and Mansell is starting to close up on Riccardo Patrese. Mansell with 2 wins behind him already this season, South Africa and Mexico, desperately wants 10 points to increase the gap between himself and Ayrton Senna in the World Championship. Mansell pushing his teammate Riccardo very hard indeed. I'm sure he's going to be very careful indeed when he goes round that Bico de Pata, and out goes Stefano Modena. That's the first retirement in the Jordan Yamaha, and Jordan certainly haven't had the luck this season compared with their races last year when they had the Ford engine. They got the Yamaha this year, and it's still Patrese leading, Mansell second, Senna is in 3rd position, Michael Schumacher is in 4th place, Alesi is 5th, Martin Brundle is in 6th position, then it's Pierluigi Martini, followed by Carl Wendlinger in the march.
Yes, Senna's stretched his lead a bit there. Schumacher's been attacking him a bit. There's a queue behind there, Brundle going well.
So, over the line, completing another lap. The 2 Williams now are already in a race of their own. Pulling well away, and Senna in trouble. He's been passed by Schumacher. Schumacher up into 3rd place, Ayrton Senna down to 4th position. Now is the Brazilian going to be able to fight back? He's tight up behind the Benetton as they go into the left-hander at the end of the straight, and Senna retakes his 3rd position. Down to 4th again goes Schumacher.
Yes, and what's interesting is that there's obviously something with the electronics going in and out on the McLaren, because we saw Senna on the previous lap, as he went past the pits, he waved to his pit, and then later on the same lap, he waved to Schumacher as if to let him through, and then suddenly the car seemed to pick up again. So it would appear, now here we see Senna. Now look, Senna suddenly slows, Schumacher accelerating hard, and then quite clearly what happens, this is a replay of what we just saw, we see that Senna's car has picked up again, so maybe the gearbox is playing about, but it's the fly-by-wire throttle as well, and Senna, quite cheekily, breaks down the inside, and in fact that was a little bit lax of Schumacher. He should have been covering that situation, because he could have blocked Senna there had he expected it, but he was clearly taken by surprise. Now, Senna is obviously in trouble. Look at the traffic queuing up behind him, behind Senna. He's holding it, the whole field has bunched up.
Lap 9, Gerhard Berger is out. Ayrton Senna holding everybody up in 3rd place. Behind him is Schumacher in 4th position. In 5th place it is Alesi. 6th position Martin Brundle. They're all close, very close indeed to each other. 7th is still Pierluigi Martini. 8th is Wendlinger. And in 9th position, the first of the Ligiers, that of Thierry Boutsen. And it's a terrific race for 3rd position, but meantime, Nigel Mansell in 2nd position, behind Riccardo Patrese, the leader. They're now some 22 seconds on lap 10 ahead of this battle. Here they come. Senna, 3rd, Schumacher, 4th, Alesi, 5th, Brundle, 6th.
And look at that queue behind Senna. In fact, it queues all the way back to 13th place. We've now been some 5 or 6 laps with Senna clearly in trouble, but his McLaren appearing to pick up suddenly between corners. He seems to be slow into the corners, and then just as Schumacher's forming up to go past, the McLaren seems to leap back into life and confound him. And really, this is a problem. Very frustrating for Michael Schumacher. Remember, he's, although we've seen a lot of him at the front of races, he's still relatively inexperienced, but he has shown that he's got a very old head on these young shoulders, because it would be quite easy to do something impetuous, and quite likely that somebody is going to somewhere down in that group, because everybody is going slower than they are capable of at full chat, and in a moment somebody's going to have a big stab at somebody else to try and get past.
And just remember the pressure that is on Ayrton Senna. This is his 9th Brazilian Grand Prix. It wasn't until last year that he won one, and he won it with the car almost literally falling to pieces round him in a state of exhaustion. And now he's got this tremendous pressure in the new McLaren MP47 with the new Honda V12 engine from Schumacher, Alesi, Brundle, Martini. Look at them all tight-packed. It's Boutsen, and then behind Boutsen is Carl Wendlinger in the march, going well. There's the gap between Patrese and Mansell.
And Martin Brundle, in fact, has been putting his nose out a lot and showing us a real enthusiasm for racing and really trying to make up a place. And that, of course, is doing a lot to make up for the lack of speed he's shown in qualifying relative to Michael Schumacher, although he got a bit closer yesterday, but then Schumacher was in the spare car, and he has been fairly comprehensively blown off in qualifying, but in racing he's really going well.
Lap 12. So they're not getting past Ayrton Senna, and because of that they're dropping back all the time. And Schumacher right up alongside the Brazilian drops back as Senna closes the door. He's determined to hold that 3rd position and the 4 World Championship points that go with it. Senna 16 points behind Mansell in the World Championship, and we're getting a terrific scrap here. Senna 3rd, Schumacher 4th, Alesi in the Ferrari going better than he's gone before this season and keeping up with everybody, but that's primarily because Ayrton Senna is holding them all up. The aerodynamics on the Ferrari have been improved, but they're still a long way from being right. Martin Brundle 6th, Martini 7th, Wendlinger 8th, Thierry Boutsen in the Ligier Renault, and out of the slipstream of Alesi goes Martin Brundle, has a look, Alesi closes the door.
Yes, and Brundle really having a go all around, and because you're right to say Ferrari slightly improved aerodynamics, and also they seem to have lost some of their appetite for engines this weekend, which has been a good thing in terms of them running on the track. And Senna, really, you'd think he'd be getting a little bit embarrassed now, because this queue, as I say, goes right back to about 13th or 14th place. You can see it as they come onto the main straight each lap, and there comes a time eventually when a driver must get embarrassed, even though, of course, to be fair, it's quite professional of Senna, and he's doing the right thing to say, at least let the others find their own way around him. And he's doing nothing unfair, but really he can't hold them up for this long, because they're going at least 2 seconds a lap, maybe 3 seconds a lap, so they could. Brundle still chipping away at the back of Alesi's Ferrari.
And meantime, Mansell and Patrese, you can't see what's happening to them, so I'll tell you, the Brazilian producer is quite understandably concentrating on his countryman Ayrton Senna and this terrific crocodile of cars behind the Brazilian. But Nigel Mansell is still pushing Riccardo Patrese. You can see there's just 0.3 of a second between them. That's how close they are. And 29 seconds now between the leaders and Ayrton Senna, who is holding everybody up. The Ferrari in 5th position, both the Benettons in the top 6. Martin Brundle is in 6th position as Senna leads through here, 3rd place.
Now, it would be more fun if it was a crocodile, Murray. When I was at school, a crocodile was in pairs. The 2x2 would be a lot of fun if these cars had to go around side by side instead of line astern like this, which is very exciting for the drivers in the cars, but not so exciting for us watching, because they're all trying to find a way by, but it looks like a bit of a parade. So there's Senna, just stretching it down the straights, and that's where the problem is, because quite clearly the Honda engine is working all right when it matters, which is down the straights.
Well, those aerial shots gave you a terrific view as Schumacher has another look at Ayrton Senna, and this time he does go through. So Schumacher into third position. Ayrton Senna is definitely in trouble because Alesi is going through. Down to fifth position goes Senna. Up to fourth place goes Alesi. And now Martin Brundle is having a go at the McLaren. And it really does look to me as though Ayrton Senna is going to be lucky to finish in the points here in Brazil. It's going to be a terrible, terrible race for him and for McLaren. But now look too at the way Michael Schumacher, now up into third position in the Ford HB V8 powered Benetton, is absolutely racing away from the new fourth position man, Jean Alesi, in the Ferrari. So it's Patrese leading. It is Nigel Mansell in second position. They are now over 30 seconds ahead of Schumacher. There's Alesi in fourth position with that two-tier Ferrari, the absolutely flat bottom, and then up on stilts, the tub of the car. And Martin Brundle is past Ayrton Senna, so the Brazilian is just desperately hanging on to the points now. The next man behind him is Ivan Capelli, and Senna goes through. Well, is he going to last, seems to be the question now. They've had so much trouble with the new Honda V12 engine in practice, with the electronics of this new car, which has had to be brought into the race here in Brazil earlier. And there's Senna losing his sixth position. So the Brazilian is now out of the points. No points for Ayrton Senna at the moment. Nigel Mansell, leading the World Championship, is on 6 points, but his teammate Riccardo Patrese leads with a possible 10 points.
Yes, and this is a testing time for Schumacher now, because he will have had built up a fair excess of adrenaline while being all frustrated following Senna. And for some people with a lack of experience, this could be a time to chuck it off the road, because it's all exciting having a clear track in front of him. But I don't expect Schumacher to do that. He's, as I say, got an old head on his very young shoulders. And there are the two Williamses, and Patrese still leading Mansell. And this is a time now, Mansell is showing considerable maturity here, because this must be very frustrating indeed for Mansell. He was so much quicker than Patrese in qualifying. This is a difficult circuit at which to overtake. And funnily enough, Mansell was saying yesterday how, or the day before, well, and yesterday, how he was surprised at Patrese's lack of speed. And in fact, he was rather saying what somebody was saying in the South African Grand Prix, really, that he thought that it seemed that Patrese was driving not as quickly either as he could or he should be. And Mansell said that yesterday, and of course he's got a closer view than most, and he is showing some restraint because he's not getting frustrated. He's got a lot of traffic. He's showing his experience here because he's got a lot of traffic ahead. They're going to be lapping the field pretty soon, going to get into that, and they've got a pit stop to go. So Mansell, but he certainly would be forgiven for feeling that if he did actually not win this race and he had to follow Patrese all the way, I think he would feel pretty aggrieved, because Patrese has certainly been quite dramatically slower than him for nearly all of the season, except for a little bit of form in Mexico, but here and in South Africa. And Patrese is basically using the fact that this circuit is so difficult to overtake to stay in front of Mansell.
Well, lap 17, you can see the position with the first two. Behind them, of course, it is still Michael Schumacher in third position. It's still Alesi fourth. It's still Brundle fifth. In sixth position, it is up into sixth position has come Pierluigi Martini, but it's not going to be all that much longer before we have tyre stops. Now, we didn't have any in Mexico, but they're all on Goodyear C compound tyres, because Goodyear are supplying all the cars in this race and every race this year. And so around about lap 25 as Ayrton Senna coming into the pits. Now, is this an early tyre stop? It is not. Ayrton Senna is retiring from his own Brazilian Grand Prix.
Yes, I should add that as regards Mansell and Patrese's battle, of course, that yesterday Mansell actually got into the car that Patrese rejected and said he didn't like, and on his first flying lap he was nearly half a second quicker than Patrese, and that was the car because, in fact, Patrese took over the team's spare, said he preferred that, but Mansell, that was what, in fact, produced the comments from Mansell, was the fact that he went into the car and Patrese and Nyken was much quicker in that as well.
So, lap 24, Modena out, Berger out, Senna out. Now, it's a long, long time, I think Canada last year, that both McLarens failed to finish the race, so there's going to be no points for them, and it means to say that with Williams first and second, they're on a maximum of 16 points in the Constructors' Championship possibility, and we're riding now with Nigel Mansell chasing Riccardo Patrese, and it could well be, because one of them will have to come into the pits to change tyres before the other, obviously. Now, if it's Riccardo Patrese, it could well be that Nigel Mansell will take the lead. In fact, he will take the lead if he's as close to Patrese as he is now, and it won't be very much longer. But Williams leads, Williams second, Patrese leads, Mansell second, then this colossal gap of now getting on for 40 seconds before Michael Schumacher, the brilliant young German. This is only his 9th Grand Prix, and he has scored points in 5 of the 8 Grand Prix that he's driven in so far. Mansell really pushing now. And we're ready now for Benetton, and this must be Schumacher because he is harder on tyres than Martin Brundle is. But we'll see. The Benetton mechanics ready to change the wheels and tyres of one of their drivers. Patrese, Mansell right up now. He's going to be very careful when he goes round this tight hairpin coming up, because that is where he went off, and into the pits comes the Benetton of Michael Schumacher. Now, how is this going to be for time? 7 seconds would be a very good stop. Michael Schumacher in 3rd position, and it's just over 7 seconds. Now, that's the first major tyre stop that we've had, lap 25. Michael Schumacher comes in 3rd position and rejoins in, I think, about 7th position, because through now up into 3rd place has gone Martin Brundle. Martin Brundle, so it's British drivers, it's 2nd and 3rd, with Patrese number 6. And that is a Venturi LaRousse, I can tell you that. And the driver walking away is Bertrand Gachot, the Belgian Bertrand Gachot, who drove for Jordan last year, out of the race to join the retirements. And incidentally, Andrea De Cesaris is out as Mansell pushes again.
Yes, and Mansell is staying pretty close to Patrese now. He's not actually trying to make a straight pass of him, but he's keeping close for the traffic. That's hard work to do, and or to stay really tight behind him. The car's more buffeted, the aerodynamics don't work so well, and he's got, and that's why you see the back markers ahead, and he is looking for some sort of misunderstanding or a little hesitation by Patrese when he gets in amongst the traffic and going for gaps, and a chance to dive into any gap left. And there is Alesi into the pits in the Ferrari. Tremendous view and a fabulous stop by the Ferrari team, and a tremendous getaway by Alesi, because, whoops, there's somebody going past him out of the pits. All gets a bit fraught when they're all stopping at once, but that was safely done. But that was well drilled indeed by the Ferrari team, and as I say, tremendous start by Alesi, because you can lose a second or more just being a bit slow off the line when they drop it off the jacks.
Now, I wonder how much longer it's going to be before Martin Brundle comes in, because here he is, that's the answer. Martin Brundle in 3rd position comes in to change tyres. Now, his teammate took 7.5 seconds, so it's slightly quicker for Martin Brundle, who rejoins the race. And we are now on lap 27 out of 71, and Martin Brundle rejoins down in about 7th position, with Riccardo Patrese leading Nigel Mansell by 1.1 seconds. Schumacher is back up into 3rd position after his pit stop, in good his way through the midfield there, never mind the tail enders, as Nigel Mansell passes the Lotus. Both Mika Häkkinen and Johnny Herbert had a lot of problems with grip in practice. Now, this is a real traffic position, and the lead could change here if Patrese gets it wrong.
Yes, well, this is the initial opportunity that Mansell's looking for. Of course, he will also be thinking about his pit stop at the moment, as will Patrese, but I've no doubt that the team will be controlling that because they can't leave it totally up to the drivers, because the one thing a team cannot cope with is if they both come in together when they're in line astern. Now, Mansell up tight, but space was made there. And they both go through, no problem with Patrese. And that is Capelli in the other Ferrari. Another good stop. And that time you saw it, you see he was much slower on the uptake of getting away than Alesi was when they dropped the car off the jacks, and that was probably the best part of a second slower or added to the pit stop, but just simply with the driver's uptake. It was a noticeable difference between Prost and Senna in the last couple of years, in that Senna was virtually had the car moving the moment it was dropped off the jacks, and Prost was saying, oh dear, and Patrese was a bit chopped there. And Mansell's coming in tight, and this is a chance possibly, and Mansell's going down the left-hand side, but he did that to Senna, and it all ended in tears yesterday, so that was exactly the point where it happened, I think.
And the man who was in the way, surprise, surprise, was Olivier Grilliard, and past him goes Patrese, past him goes Nigel Mansell. Well, there's what? Just a couple of cars' lengths between them. We're on lap 29 now, with Patrese leading. Mansell in second position, Michael Schumacher in third position. In fourth place, it's Comas. In fifth position, after his tyre stop, Jean Alesi. In sixth position, after his tyre stop, it is Brundle, and the leaders of lap, everybody up to sixth position, and we're only on lap 29 in this 71 lap race. Patrese. And into the pits comes Nigel Mansell. Now, the fastest time we've had so far is Alesi, 6.3 seconds. And Williams had got some new tyre changing equipment after the problems they had last year. And Mansell rejoins the race after an 8.54 stop. Patrese will be next.
It's slightly alarming the way that front jack flew up, or the one part of it did, as they pulled it away, but no doubt that was all part of the plan, because certainly didn't impair Mansell's exit, and I thought that showed a touch of experience there with their big lead, in that they took it just a little bit sensibly and easily. There was no panic, and they used probably another second and a half over what they maybe could have done, and that's absolutely right. Now, they can, of course, control the race, because they could just be a little bit slower with Patrase's pit stop, but it's not in the nature of the Williams team, and that has never been their policy to do anything like that. And I'm quite sure that he will be given a full speed tyre change when he comes in. Now, it's a difficult decision for Patrese, because he, on the one hand, Mansell is out on fresh rubber and will for sure be quicker if he's got a clear track, whereas Patrese, but he's got a lot of traffic to repass. Patrese, on the other hand, is who we can't see at the moment. We don't quite know whether he's in traffic or not, but if he's in clear on a clear track, he may feel that he can get away. Mansell's got quite a clear track, and therefore should be making ground on Patrese effectively on the road.
With Patrese, there he is, some 20 seconds ahead of Mansell after the Englishman had come into the pits, slowed down, stopped, changed his tyres and wheels, and speeded back into the race again. Still in second position. We're on lap 31 now, and it could well be that Patrese will be coming in at the end of this lap. He can't afford to leave it much longer, because Mansell is on new tyres.
And with a clear track, but so is Patrese. Now, that's an interesting thing, because that's quite a coincidence with such a crowded track, that both of them happen to be on different parts of it and lapping very much on their own, because when you're this much quicker than everybody else, you catch things up rather quickly. But Patrese, certainly, if he knows Mansell over the radio, if he can get that information, or is thought to do so, if he knows Mansell's on a clear track, he ought to be in a big panic to get in quick.
And Mansell is really speeding up. New lap record for Nigel Mansell, and off goes Alesi. And Brundle. Brundle on the left, Alesi. They had it coming together, coming into the Senna corner, and Martin Brundle out of the race. He's failed to finish in it, and Patrese into the pits. So Patrese, the race leader. Is Mansell going to get through and take the lead? Let's see. That's quite a long stop by Mansell standards, 9.1 seconds. Half a second slower than Nigel Mansell. Ricardo Patrese sprints out of the pits and Nigel Mansell leads the Brazilian Grand Prix. And there he is. That's how close it was. Just half a second between them and the pit stop. And that is Patrese. He, like Mansell, is on new tyres, but Mansell has got the flow and the rhythm.
Yes, Mansell was the first of those three cars, and there's Brundle out of his car, the race all over for him, and he'd been hounding Alesi throughout the race, and obviously he finally made a dive at the inside, and we didn't see exactly what happened, but it all ended badly for him, and that's a great shame. So Mansell is in the lead, and we're still looking at Patrese. Mansell's just out of picture. He's just ahead of the march there, and there's the incident again. And as I say, we didn't see even then how it started. That's a shame. And Alesi appears to have got going again, although whether he suffered any damage or not, we don't as yet know.
Well, Mansell is not only in the lead, but extending his lead. We were worried about him after he went off yesterday. He had a considerable thump as he hit the wall. His head came right over. I thought he might have had whiplash problems like Ayrton Senna did in Mexico, but he was declared fit to race this morning by Professor Sid Watkins, who went out to see how he was immediately after the crash. And there we are, Nigel Mansell fastest, 1 minute 19.764. That's 1/10 of a second faster than Gerhard Berger's lap record last year in the McLaren Honda V12, as you look at Thierry Boutsen. And the race order now is Nigel Mansell leading Ricardo Patrese. In third position, it is Michael Schumacher. Fourth is Alesi in the Ferrari. Fifth is his teammate, Ivan Capelli, and in sixth position now, it is, believe it or not, Michele Alboreto in the footwork Mugen. And this is the first time that I can remember a footwork as opposed to an arrows being in the points. The last time I can remember one of that team's cars finishing in the points was Caffey, 5th place at Monaco in 1990. They've had a very barren period, and Alboreto is fighting back in the points, the Italian veteran, ex-Ferrari driver. But the Williams cars are well away now, 40 seconds ahead of Schumacher, and it seems to be just a case of keeping them running, and whether Mansell, as he laps the Ligier, can get well away. He's in the lead now, and he's just got to be very careful as he threads his way through the field, as out of the pits goes Maurizio Gugelmin in the Jordan Yamaha. He lives in Curitiba in Brazil. Well, now Ricardo Patrese has got a major problem now. The problem, of course, is that he knows that it's his teammate Nigel Mansell, who won in South Africa, who won in Mexico, who is in such dominant form this year, who is ahead of him. And certainly Ricardo has lost the psychological advantage of being that much ahead of Nigel Mansell. And provided the Williams keeps going, there it is, Nigel Mansell. It looks as though he is on his way to a third successive victory. I remind you that Ayrton Senna won not only the first race, the second race, the third race, but also the fourth race in 1991.
Yes, Mansell now just has to be very careful in the traffic, but he can really afford to take plenty of time and care about dealing with the back markers. He's got a lot in hand over his teammate Ricardo Patrese, let alone the rest of the field, and that was Comas going through, followed by his teammate, I think Thierry Boutsen, once again battling away in the Ligier team. There's apparently a certain amount of two split into two teams here, and a new fastest lap for Ricardo Patrese. So Patrese is certainly fighting.
Yes, true enough, but he is still some 3.5 seconds behind Nigel Mansell, and the way Nigel's going, I think Patrese is going to be very hard put to claw back that time difference between himself and his teammate ahead of him. But there's Ricardo, the most experienced man in Grand Prix racing, because this is his 227th Grand Prix. A quite incredible achievement. The previous highest was Jean Lafitte and Graham Hill on 176. And Ricciardo is keeping his form. He's in second position now. He is on 6 points possible. And McLaren, with both cars out of the race, with, after the first 2 races, only 9 championship points compared with Williams' 32, must be really down in the dumps as they pack up their equipment. They brought 9 tons of parts with them to Brazil. They bought 6 cars, 3 of last year's and 3 of the new ones. They brought 45 people from Woking. There were 23 Honda technicians, and the net result is 2 early retirements, with Berger hardly getting away at the beginning of the race. So McLaren will not want to remember Brazil in 1992. But the Ligiers are going well, because Thierry Boutsen and Eric Comas are both well up the field after their stops. They're in 8th and 9th positions, but gaining.
Yes, and it's an interesting situation within the team, because Comas, who's the young, talented driver coming up, has certainly put it over Boutsen so far this season, apart from qualifying yesterday when things went a bit wrong for Boutsen, but he was quicker than, sorry, for Comas rather, he was quicker than Boutsen throughout the rest of the meeting. And apparently, as quite often happens in teams, there's little love lost between the 2 drivers already, so that didn't take that long. But maybe it was because Comas was kept out of the car all winter, while Boutsen was given the testing to do, which seemed a short-sighted policy by the Ligier team.
Yeah, in fact, there's been major dissension in the Ligier team, because Eric Comas has fallen out with Gérard Ducarouge, who is the team's designer. Everybody seems to have fallen out with Guy Ligier. Comas and Boutsen have fallen out with each other, and so there is very little harmony, but the car is going a lot better. There they are, you see. They're behind Riccardo Patrese, who has lapped both of them, are Boutsen and Comas.
Yes, Comas was 5th quickest yesterday morning in the free practice. He was 5th quickest in the warm-up this morning, and the car really seems to be relatively competitive. Boutsen was qualified 10th. Comas actually qualified lower than that, but he had problems yesterday in qualifying, and they seem to have got their aerodynamics right, and we all know that the Renault engine is a very powerful force indeed, combined with its fuel, as we have seen at the front of this race.
Well, dare I say it, the race seems to have settled down a bit. Lap 37, Mansell leading Patrese by 7 seconds. There's a 45-second gap before Schumacher in 3rd position. He is followed in 4th place by the Ferrari of Jean Alesi. 5th is Capelli, but he has been lapped as Herbert. Comas and Boutsen come down, and contact. Boutsen hits Comas, Boutsen hits Herbert, Herbert goes off into the gravel trap. Comas seems to have gone on. Already the rescue car is coming out. Let's hope he gets across the circuit before anybody comes down at racing speed. And that must be Thierry Boutsen. It is Thierry Boutsen retiring from the race. Johnny Herbert is out. Here is a replay.
And Comas is the one in front of these two, Herbert in front of them. Boutsen comes inside, and that seemed a bit cavalier, and then Herbert, who had taken it quietly on the outside, was an innocent victim of that, really. There goes the rear wing from Boutsen's car, and quite honestly, that looked like, let's say, a misunderstanding between, an inter-team misunderstanding.
Lap 42, and the quite incredible Williams team with Nigel Mansell leading, red 5. There he is, 8.7 seconds ahead of Riccardo Patrese. Patrese is some 52 seconds as the Williams team are now handing out the drinks ahead of Michael Schumacher. Mansell has lapped everybody up to Schumacher, who is 3rd. There is Mansell, and you can see that behind him is Jean Alesi in 4th position, who has just been lapped. 5th is Ivan Capelli. In 6th position, it is still Michele Alboreto. In 7th place, it is Eric Comas, running well after that contact with Thierry Boutsen. In 8th position, it is Karl Wendlinger, and that is a real reward for the Austrian, who went so well in South Africa, who qualified extremely well here, and the March team desperately need a finish to get some sponsorship because they have lost a lot of people. They've had a major falling out with the Japanese principal of their team last year, and in 9th place behind Wendlinger it is Gianni Morbidelli. And incidentally, as you watch Nigel Mansell, let me tell you that the Lamborghini people have discovered that due to a setting up fault in their engine, they've been running about 40 horsepower shy of its maximum power all season, and they've managed to correct it for this race.
It wasn't the biggest falling out between the principal of the March team and the Japanese authorities rather than the team, Murray.
Well, yes, you are absolutely right, James. And so, Mansell, on his way seemingly to win and see his 3rd Grand Prix on the trot. Well, what an incredible situation this is for Nigel Mansell, because he's now racing in his 168th Grand Prix. He's already got 23 victories behind him, 20 pole positions. He's been in pole position for every one of the 3 races this year. And although he is a dominant driver, an awful lot of his success has got to be put down to the patient development by Patrick Head, Adrian Newey and everybody else at the Williams factory at Didcot, to the Elf fuel technicians, to Bernard Dudot of Renault, who has got this Renault V10 engine absolutely au point, and it is now seeing off the Honda. And there'll be a lot of misery and unhappiness in Japan because Honda have got used to winning races, just have McLaren have, and the boot is on the other foot now. Nigel Mansell pulling away fast. We're on lap 43 now in this 71 lap race. Mansell leads Patrese by 9 seconds, then Schumacher, who is the next person to be lapped, and there is Frank Williams.
Yes, but in fairness, far and away the biggest difference between this Renault Williams and the opposition is in the chassis department. It is not in the engine and the horsepower, quite honestly. That is one part of it, and certainly they're very good. And there is Eric Comas. So Eric Comas, I would imagine, suffered damage as well in that coming together. He is coming to a grinding halt, and that'll be the end of his race. But McLaren's must be deeply worried about the speed of their new car in the chassis department. Getting the power right in the Honda engine may give them another half a second a lap or something like that, but they're looking for 3 seconds a lap in total to catch the Williams, and nearly all of that's going to be in the chassis, and not a great deal of it is likely to be in the reactive suspension that the Williams runs. Now, McLaren have a reactive suspension system that they've been testing for quite a long time, all last year, etc., and that is going to go on to the new car in due course. We don't know exactly when, but I'm sure more is there. Now, there's yellow flags there we saw as the cars come up on the start-finish straight. Haven't yet seen why. Well, still can't see why. That's turn 1 at the end of the start-finish straight, but McLaren has all the other teams just very right, and from the point of view of aerodynamics and chassis layout, Williams seem to be absolutely in a class of their own, and their reactive suspension is part of that package, but I would have thought that is a relatively small part. After all, the Williams was very much the best car last year, and it didn't have that on.
Well, there is the sole remaining Benetton, that of Michael Schumacher. We're on lap 51, and very soon Schumacher is going to see this in his mirrors, Nigel Mansell, because the Englishman in the Williams Renault is bearing down on Schumacher's Benetton Ford. In fact, there is a 68, there it is. You see, there's Schumacher third, Mansell in the lead, and Mansell is a comfortable cushion of 10 seconds between him and his teammate Riccardo Patrese. Mansell about to lap the 3rd place man, Michael Schumacher. It's still Jean Alesi in 4th place. It's still his teammate in the 2nd Ferrari, Ivan Capelli 6th. Michele Alboreto is soldiering on, hoping for his first point for a long, long time, and Footwork's ever first point in 6th position. And in 7th place now, it is Gianni Morbidelli. In 8th position, it is Olivier Grillard in the Tyrrell, and down to 9th position was Carl Wendlinger, but you can see the updated situation there.
And certainly the dominance of the Williams Renaults is very like that of the Lotus 79s way back in 1978, when they swept just all before them and turned it into, in their case, very much a demonstration run, because those with long memories will cast their minds back and remember that Mario Andretti was designated as specific #1 in the team, and Ronnie Peterson was his definite #2, and therefore Ronnie was obliged to follow Mario Andretti round and round, track after track, and it was Ronnie made his point, because he was much the quicker of the two drivers, made his point by sitting about 6 inches from the exhaust pipes of Mario Andretti's car in an act of defiant obedience.
So watch this, lap 53, you are seeing in the same picture Michael Schumacher on the left, 3rd place. Look at the speed differential between the Benetton Ford and the Williams Renault, as into his slipstream, and out of it is Schumacher going to give way, goes Nigel Mansell, soon to pass the 3rd place man. We're riding with Nigel Mansell now around this magnificent circuit, which, as you can see, has not only got just about every kind of corner, but has got plenty of gradient, and that is something that is lacking at this. They go up here. Now they're approaching that very tight hairpin where Mansell came to grief yesterday, the Bico do Porto, and then from there they go round to Curva 4 and on to the completion of the lap. Now Mansell's got all the time in the world to take things very easily indeed. He will know from his radio and from his pit board what the situation is. He will know that he has got that comfortable cushion of 10 seconds. They're coming up to complete the lap now, and I'm expecting Mansell to go past Schumacher and into the lead, past him, who is in 3rd position, before they come to the Senna bend, which is the left-hander that they're approaching now. Is Schumacher going to move over? Schumacher has moved over. And now only 2 cars are on the same lap, lap 52, and those 2 cars are the Williams Renaults of #5, Nigel Mansell, #6, Riccardo Patrese, on their way to a maximum 16 points for Williams in the Constructors' Championship, which would give them 48 points after just the South African, Mexican and Brazilian Grand Prix, and a tremendous lead, of course.
Schumacher quite rightly leaving plenty of room there. He's got a very comfortable 3rd place. He's well ahead of Alesi's Ferrari there, some over 25 seconds, and he's already shown us what a sensible driver he is, as well as an exceptionally quick one, and he's not about to throw away another very well deserved 3rd place.
Well, at this stage of the season last year, after the first 3 races, Ayrton Senna had 30 points and Nigel Mansell did not have any, and there's yet another retirement imminent. Lap 64 we're on now. It's a 71-lap race, and Mansell and Patrese and Williams have just got to keep their fingers crossed for reliability. Mansell, unless he has a car problem, cannot lose this race. He's 22 seconds ahead of Riccardo Patrese. The Italian must have decided to settle for 2nd place. Schumacher in 3rd position is now a lap behind. In 4th position and 5th position, and now this is good news for Maranello, for Ferrari, for Alesi, for Capelli, for Niki Lauda, for Montezemolo, and for everybody else who works at Ferrari, because in 4th and 5th places are still Jean Alesi and Ivan Capelli, and marvellous news for Milton Keynes and Footwork, where the team's headquarters is, because Michele Alboreto is still hanging on, as you can see, in 6th position for the 1 point that'll go with it. And although it's early in the season to be talking about pre-qualifying next year, the fact is that one of the Footwork drivers has to pre-qualify for the races this year, although the Andrea Moda team were here. Perry McCarthy unfortunately was not allowed to race, and Roberto Moreno was so slow because of the newness of the car that he couldn't get through. But the Footwork team, with that 1 point they look like getting, although the race has yet to be finished, will be saved from pre-qualifying almost certainly.
Yes, and Nicky Lauda, of course, is present this weekend. He didn't come to Mexico for the last race, and on arrival he said that as far as he was concerned, and that is Briard walking in. I beg your pardon?
Christian Fittipaldi, the Brazilian, who of course is very much the hero here, and he's failed to finish his first Brazilian Grand Prix.
Excuse myself there, Murray, I beg your pardon. I should know that. I didn't go up with him in Formula 3000, but that back view. But for Ferrari, really, as Lauda said, it's not so much at the moment putting the problems right. Of course, they've done a good job in getting the cars at least to look as if they're going to finish the race, and probably will, and they've gone back to those first principles. But he's still more concerned with identifying the areas that need putting right, the areas of problems, let alone solving them as yet. So there's a long uphill struggle for the Ferrari management of Lauda and Montezemolo in such a big bureaucracy as Ferrari is. They're a great team, but unlike the McLarens of this world, the Williams of this world, they do not have the response time that the more compact teams have in terms of changing course and putting things right when they're not going so well. And of course McLaren are now becoming a very big team, and it remains to be seen just how well they can respond to this fantastic performance by the Williams team. It really is a joy, must be a joy for Mansell to be driving a car such as that. And now coming up to that one of the low tie, looks like Herbert's helmet, but Herbert got a knock, so I guess he got going again.
Well, lap 67, and nothing looks like stopping the Williams now. It's been a superb race for both of them. Mansell, 25 seconds ahead of Patrese, has stamped his dominance on this race, just as he did in South Africa, just as he did in Mexico. It's still Michael Schumacher in 3rd place. No change for 4th and 5th, the two Ferraris. No change for 6th position with Michele Alboreto. In 7th place, it is still Gianni Morbidelli. In 8th position, it is JJ Leto in the Dallara. 9th is Ukyo Katayama, the Japanese driver in the Larousse. And in 10th position, it is Mika Hakkinen in the Lotus. Nigel Mansell there leading now. The main retirements so far have been Stefano Modena, Gerhard Berger and Senna. Both the McLarens out by lap 18. Andre de Cesaris in the Tyrrell. Bertrand Gachot, Martin Brundle, Johnny Herbert, Thierry Boutsen, Maurizio Gugelmin and Eric Comas, all out of the Brazilian Grand Prix, which has now just got a few laps to run, as Christian Fittipaldi tells the local media what it was like from his point of view. Disappointing for Christian, but he's only 21 years old. He's in Formula One already. He's got superb backing, and he's got a lot of time to go on and do well in this premier category of motorsport.
He's also very much in the Fittipaldi family mould. He's got a fantastic racing brain. His head, he's not shown that he's fantastically quick as yet, but nor really were either of his forebears, but they were always able to get results, and he showed a tremendous ability to get results no matter what in Formula 3 and Formula 3000 already, and he's starting young, and he can only build on that experience. For Mansell, this is very nearly the conclusion of another fabulous weekend, marred only by a minor incident. He got a bit of a bang yesterday when he was attacking Ayrton Senna in qualifying, and I think one can really put that down to enjoying himself too much. I mean, I think you'd be the first to admit it was a pretty silly thing to do, but when you drive with such a huge car advantage, and the car is so easy, and you're such a master of it, you sometimes feel that you can do anything with it. And of course, that is something that these Formula 1 cars, when you do overstep the mark, they remind you very quickly and quite severely that that is not the case. They're very lively creatures, and they punish errors.
3 laps to go, including the one that we're with Nigel Mansell now. And don't think that the World Championship is by any means decided, because I say again that last year Senna and McLaren, of course, won the first 4 races. After Monaco, Ayrton Senna had 40 points and Nigel Mansell here only had 6. Well, at the present moment, the positions are almost reversed, because at the end of this race, Nigel Mansell is going to have 30 points and Senna is going to only have 4. But in 1991, Nigel Mansell really fought back. You remember those 3 successive victories in France, Britain and Germany. He closed the gap to Senna, and when the new McLaren is running, the same thing could happen.
The difference is, though, that this year Williams have walked the first 3 races with what is clearly far and away the best car. Last year, Senna struggled in those races, not only for speed, but also for reliability, and McLaren were definitely on an uphill struggle to win those first 4. In fact, it turned out to be for Senna, and because Williams were having mechanical problems and had already shown how quick they were. So it really is a very different situation, and the opposition now have got a great deal to do to get even close to the Williamses.
And of course there is not only a new Williams car ready to be brought out if they feel that there is the need for it, but there is also the new Renault RS4 engine, which Bernard Dudot has developed and is better than the RS3. But he said to me the other day, I'm not going to bring it out for Williams until we feel it is necessary, and it's obviously not necessary at the moment. Nigel Mansell is on lap 70 out of 71 in the Brazilian Grand Prix, seemingly, and I use that word advisedly, about to make it a superb triple. 3 in a row. Victory in South Africa, victory in Mexico, victory in Brazil, but the race is not finished until the checkered flag is seen by the leading driver. Here is the leading driver. He's cresting the rise now, coming out of the left-hander into the finishing straight, down to the Curvo do Senna, named after the brilliant Brazilian. Nigel Mansell is now on his last lap into the S's, out of the Curvo do Senna, into the right-hander Ultimo Volta, the last lap, up to the Curvo do Sol. Accelerating away down the top straight, building up in 6th gear to 119 miles an hour. He's only half a lap now from his 3rd successive victory. Curva 3, past the lake. Now starting after this left-hander to climb again up to the Perodura, the 4th gear, and he's almost home.
Yes, and really another consummately easy win for Mansell. The only problem he had in the race was the slight pressure of having to follow Patrese for the first half of it, but it was fairly inevitable that he would get past. In fact, he did it fairly comfortably courtesy of the pit stops. He made the right move, stopped first, got onto the fresh tyres, but he still had traffic and other chances. But apart from that, little worry for half a race. It's been very easy indeed. A fine win for Mansell, and the World Championship is really going away.
As the Williams team look for their team leader, and that he is, Nigel Mansell, crosses the line. Now, to win the Brazilian Grand Prix, to give himself a maximum of 30 points. Well, the gap between himself and Riccardo Patrese had gone up to over 27 seconds. That was an indication of the Englishman's class. There's Peter Windsor in the dark glasses, Patrick Head in the background, respectively the team manager and the leader of the car's design team, as Riccardo Patrese crosses the line to finish second. Another maximum for Williams, 10 points for victory, 6 points for second place. And of course, Michael Schumacher has already finished, albeit a lap shy of the full distance, to finish in third position. With in fourth place, Jean Alesi Ferrari. Good news, even better news, as Nigel Mansell drives home on his victory lap, and he's found it looks like a Union Jack from somewhere or other, so he must have stopped out of our sight. Fifth is Ivan Capelli. It's a combination on the flagstaff there of Brazil and Britain. And in sixth position, Michele Alboreto finally did it. So, confirmation for the result of the Brazilian Grand Prix. Nigel Mansell and Patrese, first and second for Williams. Schumacher for Benetton, third. Then the two Ferraris of Alesi and Capelli, and Michele Alboreto, that hard-won point. And that means to say that in the Drivers' Championship, Mansell has extended his lead considerably over Riccardo Patrese, who is now 7 points ahead of Michael Schumacher, who is 6 points ahead of Berger. Senna only 4 points after 3 races in 5th position, and Jean Alesi for Ferrari in 6th place. Well done, Nigel Mansell. Well done, Riccardo Patrese, and extremely well done, Williams. Not to mention Renault. Well, there is real happiness, and there is the podium with, yet again, Nigel Mansell. Well, there's a sporting gesture. Get up there with me, says Nigel Mansell, to teammate Riccardo Patrese, second, and Michael Schumacher on the right in third position. Well, so much for a magnificent Brazil, and in 4 weeks' time to Barcelona, to Europe, for the Spanish Grand Prix on the 3rd of May. Watch it live on BBC Television.